Thousand Autumns, is a Meng Xi Shi novel. This is an audiobook made by fans for other fans. Disclaimer. The main couple of the story is made up of two men. If you don't like it, don't listen. Thank you. Remember, subscribe and click the bell to stay updated on all the new releases. Enjoy. Chapter 84. Chen Gong had broken open the hilt of the Tai sword with the red chalcedony in the underground city of Ruoqiang. This was how he had come into possession of the lost volume of the Zuyang Ce. It was unexpected that he would bring the sword back with him and even have it reforged once more. This was a famous sword from the Warring States period, and rose to fame because of Qin Shi Huang. It seemed that one could be the ruler of all the land with the sword in their hands. Though it had no use in Chen Gong's possession any longer, it was rather advantageous of Chen Gong to offer it to Yuan Yun, as it suited the other man's tastes. He had given it to the right person there. Since Chen Gong himself was used to being the subordinates of those with high rank, it was nothing to run into a man of similar background like that of Yuan Yun. The color was drained from everyone's face as they watched the large troops of men and horses surround the Su residents, trapping them so tightly that not even a drop of water would pass them by. Some were terrified, while others were filled with anger. Yet there were some who remained calm and undisturbed. Su Wei's mother, Madame Qin, was also taken by surprise. She had come out with her son Su Qiao by her side. Su Chiao had left his home and made his way in Jianghu, and was not tied down by the duties of the bureaucracy. Upon seeing this state of affairs, he said in a cold voice, "Yuan Cheng. What is the meaning of this? The Su family is peaceful. We've never gone and started anything with anyone. So why have you brought these worthless bastards over here?" Rage flashed across Murong Qin's face when he heard himself being referred to as a worthless bastard. However, he repressed it immediately after. Yuan Qing, however, looked as if he were caught for the purpose of being a manservant right at the last minute. He didn't want to start any conflict with the Su family, so he only laughed upon hearing Su Qiao's words, "Su Erlang, it's been a long time. I heard that you'd gone to Qingcheng Mountain the past few days. I didn't think that you'd have come back so quickly." He then turned to Yuan Xian, Su Wei, and Madame Qin, and asked how each of them were. The tone he used with Shen Qiao was incredibly familiar. "Shen Daozang. I've missed you ever since we last parted. It seems that you're healthy now, aren't you?" Shen Qiao nodded. "Thank you for your concern. I am much better now." "That's good. That's very good." With Yuan Qing's light-hearted remarks, the tense atmosphere from earlier had lightened somewhat. Yuan Qing cupped his hands before Yuan Xian, and began to speak more properly. "Prince of Qi. There have been a number of people reporting you for having a hand in the death of the former emperor. His Majesty is furious. He instructed me to bring you to the imperial palace to discuss the details. If you have been wrongly accused, then he will treat you fairly." "Bullshit." Yan Ying was first to rebuke with anger. His Highness the Prince of Qi was his most loyal and devoted subject. How could he possibly have secretly plotted against the former emperor? All of this is unfounded and malicious slander. Shen Qiao glanced to the side at Dou Yan, who hid behind Yuan Xian, wearing a look of alarm and horror. He was never especially susceptible to secret plans and tricks, and had always looked upon others with only good intentions. However, after having experienced so much, Shen Qiao had already begun to learn from how Yan Wushi treated these issues. Yuan Yun knew that Dou Yan had seen him kill his own father. He also suspected that his uncle would threaten his power, as the man had led the military for so long and earned outstanding achievements in war. He might as well have struck him down with the first move while he could, and place the murder charge on him. It didn't matter whether or not anyone believed it. This way, even if Do Yan were to say anything, her words would only be taken by others as a rumor spread by a child. And in any case, Yuan Yun was Yuan Yang's son. It didn't matter how stupid he might have been. None of the methods that an emperor had at his disposal would ever be lacking in any way. By comparison, it was Yuan Xian who was much too passive on this front. It seemed that everything that was happening today was far beyond being settled by merely civil discussion. If Shen Qiao could think of this, Yuan Xian could naturally as well. Within a single moment, a number of thoughts flashed through his mind. The truth was that, when Yuan Yang was still emperor, Yan Wushi had indeed sought Yuan Xian out, and clearly told him that Huanyu sect was willing to lend its influence and do all that it could to assist him in making great achievements, including replacing the crown prince Yuan Yun. However, at that time, Yuan Xian did not respond to his offer. Later, when Yuan Yang had suddenly died, Bian Yanmei had secretly notified him, so as to have him make preparations beforehand. But Yuan Xian had yet to make up his mind then. In the end, he was unwilling to allow the natural order of things to be disturbed. Bian Yanmei did not make any attempt to persuade him any longer. In the end, after Yuan Yang's death, the Bian residents disappeared without a trace within the night, such that no one would be able to find them if they had wanted to. And because of Yuan Xian's careless choice made in a moment of weakness, everything after happened just as Yan Wushi had predicted it would. Yan Wushi had once said this to him: the moment that Yuan Yang dies, Yuan Yun will take action against his uncle before a month's time passes. And now, as things stood, everything happened as he said it would. Yuan Xian sighed. The feeling that he experienced then was unknowable. He said to Yuan Qing, "I am a loyal and honorable man. The sun and moon can act as my judge. What the former emperor once knew, is what his majesty now knows, and no different from the knowledge of all the ministers and generals of the imperial court. The day that his majesty passed away, I certainly entered the palace to examine him myself. However, his majesty wanted to sleep. I remained for not even a quarter of an hour before departing. His Majesty's death was also a matter that I only learned of afterwards. How could I possibly be implicated in this matter?" His words made things difficult for Yuan Qing, who said, "Prince of Qi, you should say these things before His Majesty. I am simply following orders as they are given. I really can't do anything about it." Su Wei said coldly, "Is the Prince of Qi even going to come out in one piece after he enters the palace?" Yuan Qing did not speak. But the truth was that the answer didn't need to be spoken aloud. Everyone already knew what it was. Murong Qin suddenly said, "Yuan Deifu, remember that when we left the palace, His Majesty said that this matter could not be delayed. The faster we get this done, the better." Yuan Qing seemed annoyed at this, but in the end, he did not refute Murong Qin. Instead, he said to Yuan Xian, "Prince of Qi, you heard him clearly. I must ask that you come along with us." Yan Ying said anxiously, "Your Highness, you can't possibly go. If you do, you won't be able to turn back. All the world knows that you've been wrongly accused. The Emperor himself will never let you go. You only need to give an order, and this lowly one will use all his life to kill everyone who surrounds us here." Murong Qin laughed coldly, "His Majesty has long surrounded you. All the roads leading out of the city are filled with Wuzhong masters waiting to ambush. Even if you were able to escape from here, you won't be able to escape from the capital. At the very least, remember that the family of the Prince of Qi is still at the prince's residence. Are you so cold-hearted as to watch them die as well? Yan Ying responded with fury, Murong Qin. You are a lowly, despicable man, from a family of nothing but slaves. What basis do you have to even speak? Madame Qin spoke suddenly, our Su family has been renowned for generations, and strong in character. The Prince of Qi was never a coward. He rushed headlong into battlefields, and established great contributions in war for this country of Zhou. Everyone knows this, and the common people admire him. How could he possibly become a prisoner as a result of such baseless accusations? If His Majesty wishes to question him further, then I will swear upon the Su family's good name that the Prince of Qi himself is free of all guilt. Su Wei agreed, that's right. We, the Su family, are willing to testify on behalf of the Prince of Qi. Murong Qin said coldly, regardless of whether or not you testify, you will need to speak before His Majesty himself. Don't impede on our official business. We have come today to take away Yuan Xian. There's no need for the rest of you to waste your breath. Chiao stared daggers into him, and if we do not allow you to. Murong Qin slowly unsheathed his sword, then you will have to pardon me. Murong Xianzhen. The second young master of the Su family is the disciple of Yi Baikan from Chunyang Temple. Yuan Qing warned Murong Qin implicitly, before turning to Yuan Xian, Prince of Qi, Murong Xianzhen's words are not wrong. Though you may be able to escape, the people within the prince's residence will not. I must ask that you think over your decision carefully. Are you saying that if I do not escape, then His Majesty will release my family? Yuan Xian gave a dark smile, before placing Yuan Song down. He then turned to face Madame Qin and the others, before performing a grand gesture, these past few days, I have brought much trouble upon your honorable household. I must ask Madame to forgive me, as I must thank everyone for their protection. One must take responsibility for what he has done. I will go along with them. I do not want you to be implicated because me. Prince of Qi, Madame Qi said, taken aback. Yuan Xian took several steps forward, without putting up any resistance. Yuan Qing gestured at the troops, who arrested him. Your Highness. Yan Ying shouted. Yan Ying. I must ask you to take care of Qilang from now on. Take him away, out of the capital, to his uncle's house. Murong Qin, however, interrupted him, don't waste your breath, Prince of Qi. It doesn't matter whether it's your son, your daughter, or anyone from your household. No one from the prince's residence will be allowed to leave the city without the emperor's permission. Yuan Xian's expression darkened, I've already allowed you to seize me. Does His Majesty intend to slaughter my family? Murong Qin ignored him, seize Yuan Qilang as well. Yan Ying took Yuan Song behind him, as though he were prepared to lay down his entire life to protect Qilang. But how could Murong Qin care? He approached Yan Ying, pushing aside the soldiers as he did. His long sword moved as he did. They only exchanged 3 moves before Yan Ying fell pitifully to the ground, while Murong Qin looked upon him as if he were hardly worth the effort. He then extended one hand to seize Yuan Song. Yet a sheathed sword's blade appeared before his face. And the man wielding it was beautiful, fair and slender like that of the finest jade, without a single flaw. However, Murong Qin had no intent on enjoying the view. He grabbed at the sword's sheath. The moment that he laid one hand upon it, he suddenly remembered what the sword was, and the identity of its master. Then, he remembered how, in the ruined city of Ruoqiang, the way that Shen Qiao had fought the horde of monkeys on his own. For this reason, his movements came to a short pause. It was at this moment that the sword was drawn back beyond his reach. Murong Qin quickly stepped back, barely missing a strike to his face. When he fixed his eyes upon the man before him, he could see that Shen Qiao had not yet unsheathed his sword. His Daoist robes floated up with the wind, complementing his graceful, exquisite beauty, repelling the dust of this mortal world, free of all impurity. He looked the most incapable of causing any harm compared to anyone else present. However, Murong Qin knew that this was a false appearance. Though he had once underestimated Shen Qiao, he did not dare to look down upon him after what had happened in Ruoqiang, this man who possessed enormous strength within him. He composed himself, before asking in a cold voice, "Shen Daozang, are you no better than a dog? Why do you constantly stick your nose into anything that catches your eye? You have not yet reached a final conclusion regarding the crimes of the Prince of Qi." Shen Qiao said. "Yet you want to implicate an innocent child." Murong Qin smirked. He had the nerve to kill the former emperor. Naturally his family is guilty by association. Do Yan could not stand this any longer. She said aloud in a sharp voice, "The Prince of Qi didn't kill the former emperor. The former emperor was killed by Yuan Yun." The expressions of everyone, except for those who had learned of this just then, suddenly darkened. "What are you saying?" Yuan Qing burst out. "Deluding the people with lies. Seize her as well, do not let any of them escape," Murong Qin said loudly. The moment he said this, Tuoba Liang and Murong Sun swept in, with one seizing Do Yan, and another throwing himself towards Yuan Song. Neither of these small children had the strength to resist. Though they were able to see these men coming for them, they could only look on helplessly as they approached. However, neither Tuoba Liang nor Murong Sun would be able to close in on them. Light from the blade of a sword shined over them, engulfing everything within its wake with true qi. The two men retreated several steps backwards as though they had come in contact with a wind that heralded a great storm. "Who dares to harm them in my presence?" Shen Qiao said each word insipidly, without any change in tone, yet there was an audible force his voice carried. Murong Qin laughed severely. "Shen Qiao, as far as I can see, you are only one man. How could you possibly protect them?" He swung his sword as he leapt towards Shen Qiao. Chiao shouted, "Who said he was the only one?" He pointed his sword towards Murong Qin, while turning to shout a single phrase in Shen Qiao's direction, "Take them away, now." Murong Qin rebuked, "Does the Su family wish to lead a revolt? We are not rebels. We only seek justice." Madame Qin stamped her wooden cane into the ground. The cane broke into two, yet she pulled out a long sword from its body. The sword's body was clear, like that of autumn water, and filled with intent to kill. It only took one look to recognize that it was a reputable weapon. Su Wei had no idea that the cane that his mother had by her side for all these years had actually contained a hidden weapon. The moment he saw it, he was completely dumbstruck. Both parties began to fight brutally. The Su household participated in the battle with dignity. Yan Ying still wanted to save Yuan Xian, yet the other man shouted, "If you wish to come along with me, then it would only confirm the accusations they have against me for planning to kill the former emperor. Take Qilang and escape with Shen Daozang. Go far away, and never come back here." "Your Highness." Yan Ying could not possibly accept this reality. "Father wants to use his death to chastise His Majesty, and have him see matters clearly. That way, this chaos will also come to a calm as well, won't it?" It was Yuan Song who had said this. "That's right. All of you, hurry and leave." Yuan Xian shouted, filled with both grief and happiness, seeing how intelligent and thorough his son was, knowing very well that he would become an outstanding man in his lifetime, yet he felt great sorrow for the fact that he would never be able to see his own son become an adult. If you take me along, you won't be able to escape. Moreover, I cannot possibly leave the others behind at the prince's residence. Yuan Song suddenly fell to his knees, bowing deeply and touching his head to the ground 3 times before Yuan Xian. Tears fell from Yuan Xian's eyes like that of rain, before he turned away. Yan Ying's eyes reddened. He grit his teeth, then rushed to pick up Yuan Song and joined Shen Qiao, who was carrying Do Yan. Both men left the Su residence under Ch84 Chiao and the others' vigilance, before rushing to the city gates. They could hear a man's final cry from behind them, and then immediately the sound of Murong Qin's callous laughter. His Majesty gave us this order as well: if Yuan Xian put up any resistance, then have him killed, so that he can serve as a warning to the others. He killed Yuan Xian directly, having taken advantage of Murong Sun and Tuaboliang fending off Madame Qin and the others. He had even made sure that the sounds of his actions reverberated loudly, so as to make Shen Qiao and the rest hear him. That traitor! Yan Ying was so angry that he had come to a stop with Yuan Song in his arms, tears rolling down the boy's face. Don't look back. We have to escape before anything else. Shen Qiao shouted. In the span of their brief conversation, Murong Qin had already caught up to them from behind. Shen Qiao held Do Yan with one hand, while holding his sword in the other. However, Murong Qin was one of the top Liuzhong masters in the country of Qi. Now, even Chen Gong relied on him for support. Naturally, only one swing from this sword wouldn't be enough to take him down. His movements were quick, and his sword techniques were eccentric and cunning. He was very good at learning his opponent's weak points and attacking them there. But Murong Qin knew very well that this present Shen Qiao was not a man that he would be able to kill. Therefore, he could only draw closer to Shen Qiao, and wait to strike Do Yan, causing Shen Qiao to tend to her. Once he has created this opening, he would be able to stop Shen Qiao in his tracks. Do Yan looked at the glint and flash of clashing swords in terror. Yet she said not a word, only clinging tightly with her arms around Shen Qiao's neck, so that she would not divert his attention for even a second. Murong Qin said in a stern voice, Shen Qiao, you're carrying that child with you at the same time that you're protecting those two over there. Outside the city will be masters whose Liuzhong are stronger than mine. Just how far do you think you'll be able to go alone? However, Shen Qiao remained unmoved. So long as the Dao is with me, it wouldn't matter if I were faced with tens of thousands of people. I will prevail. His Jian Qi surged forwards. Murong Qin was unable to block it in time, before it struck his chest severely, leaving a wound that spurted out a jet of fresh blood. Yet Murong Qin showed no fear of battle. Instead, he laughed loudly, with the intent to ridicule the other man. Your Dao? Tell me, what is your Dao? In this mad world, only the winners and the strong take all. If your Dao was useful, then why is it that you faced setback after setback everywhere you went? Why did you lose the position of Zhangjiao at Xuandu Mountain? If your Dao had any use whatsoever, why hasn't that wonderful man you love so much shown himself yet? Shen Qiao smiled somewhat upon hearing this. It was a smile like that of a soft wind, blowing over the stormy waters of spring, producing light ripples upon the surface that could move any man, that could even calm the great anger of the land itself. Do Yan gazed at him. She was so close. She became so lost in this smile that she suddenly forgot all of the fear that had filled her, all of the danger that surrounded them on every side. Even 10 years from now, she would not forget that smile. Yet Shen Qiao did not speak. This smile contained thousands upon thousands of words he had carried with him for a long time. There were those who would understand, and those who wouldn't. And what was the point in wasting his breath with those who wouldn't? Those who walk different paths may only continue forward their separate ways. With the rustling of cold wind passing through fallen trees, the once powerful momentum of his sword techniques suddenly took a steep decline. Instead, it was filled with severe intent. It was like that moment at Wuxia sect, after he had battled Kunyi, and had come to an understanding that allowed him to combine swordplay with his sword technique. The original set of sword techniques that he had created were composed of simple moves without elaborate flourishes. Meng Xi even believed that he himself would be able to counter them. However, each time he made an attempt to land a counterattack, his own sword would not move where he wanted it to. Either that, or it would not produce the result that he had intended it to. Instead, it almost seemed to be led on by the other man. Shen Qiao was only fighting with one hand, while carrying Do Yan in the other. Yet he had forced Meng Xi into a situation where he could only resist helplessly. Once more, Meng Xi spat out another mouth of blood, and fell backwards into a wall. Yet before he could react, the point of Shen Qiao's sword trembled as his Jian Qi materialized, shot directly at the appointment of Meng Xi's shoulder, causing him to be unable to move. Shen Qiao did not fight zealously. Yet he did not have any intent to remain there. He leapt from the tips of his toes in Yan Ying's direction. At that moment, Yan Ying was carrying Yuan Song, and had nearly made it to the gates of the city. He was a military general, he was an expert at risking his life on the battlefield, so his Qinggong wasn't especially amazing. At that moment, he pressed on towards the final destination, only hoping that they could quickly escape the city, and bring Yuan Song somewhere far away from danger, so that he may fulfill the Prince of Qi's final wish. Yet the sound of wind being cleaved in half reached his ears. An arrow had flown past one side of his head from an area not far from the gates of the city. It was just as Meng Xi had said. A large military force had been waiting to ambush them. Each soldier had readied their bow and arrows. Once they released their thousands of arrows, they would shoot right into Yan Ying and Yuan Song, leaving them punctured through like a honeycomb. However, Yan Ying did not stop. Instead, he ran more quickly, before he looked down at Yuan Song and said, "Qilang, listen to me. I will protect you when they release their arrows in a moment. Once they've finished, they will certainly need to reload their bows. Take advantage of this moment, and follow the road out beyond the city wall. They haven't locked up the small gate there. I'll hold them up from behind, you just worry about running ahead as fast as you can. Shen Daozang is right behind us. He will most likely catch up very soon. Once he arrives, just go along with him. Don't worry about anything else, and absolutely don't turn back. Do you understand?" Yuan Xian had been deeply fond of Yuan Song ever since he was small, as he believed that Yuan Song would be the most accomplished child of the Yuan family. It was clear that he was ever so intelligent, so how could he possibly misunderstand Yan Ying's words? He could only grit his teeth upon hearing him and say, "Yan Shu." Yan Ying knew that he understood, and he smiled with the corners of his mouth turning up, at the same time avoiding the shower of arrows that fell upon them. In the next moment, dozens of arrows would have been shot into his back. Yet he only held Yuan Song closer to him without slowing his pace. He quickly brought Yuan Song to the unlocked gate. Armed soldiers intercepted him, yet he fought off each and every one. "Go! Faster! Get out of here!" he shouted as he released Yuan Song. "Don't shoot! Stop!" A man's figure had reached the city gates, making an attempt to stop the soldiers preparing the second wave of attack. The guard at the gate knew the man's identity, and paused, not daring to act rashly. However, he spoke to the other soldiers around him, "Continue to fire. Do not stop without my order. Stop." Puliurgian shouted. "Commander, His Majesty did not order you to slaughter the family of the Prince of Qi. What is the meaning of this?" Lu Fang laughed, "Sui Qiao. I do remember before that the Prince of Qi, Yuan Xian, once told the former emperor to be on his guard around you. Yet you not only do not hate him, you are speaking on his behalf. What reason is there for this?" It was the Prince of Qi's duty to offer words of advice to the former emperor for the public good. Though I may not possess a great capacity for tolerance, this child is completely innocent. Commander, why not just let him go? This would be a truly virtuous action on your behalf." Puliurgian said. Lu Fang thought for a moment. Yuan Xian's prestige in the court had won great admiration from the common people. Now, the emperor suddenly wanted to launch an attack on him. Many people had yet to react, but once this issue reached them, the number of people who would plead for leniency to be granted upon the Prince of Wang's family would certainly be quite great. Why would a single person want to come in contact with such unfortunate luck, anyway? Fine. I will leave Sui Qiao with a shred of dignity. However, I must let you know that it wouldn't matter if I were to show mercy on the boy. His Majesty had already prepared a number of masters on the outskirts of the city to launch an ambush. Even if this little boy were to make it through the door, he will still be walking to his death. Puliurgian's heart fell. He could not help but glance outside the gates. Beneath them, he could clearly make out Yuan Song tumbling out of the city gates. Yet he would be met with 3 people walking towards him. A bald man, a man with one arm, and another with an impressive appearance, with all his limbs attached. It seemed like someone had selected the top 3 masters in all of Jianghu and had them put together to close in on a small child. It was truly excessive, like that of using a butcher's knife to slaughter a chicken. Puliurgian did not recognize the bald man, nor did he recognize the one-armed man. However, he was able to make out the last one. Chen Gong? Does His Majesty really place that much value upon Yuan Song that he would even send Chen Gong out? Everyone knew that the Duke of Zhao, Chen Gong, was the newly arrived and favored minister of the emperor. Chen Gong had won the emperor's heart, and had even offered the Tai sword to him, even going as far as to submit a recommendation for the Hehuan sect to him so that the powers would be split between them and the Buddhist sects, conveniently substituting Huanyu sect's original influence and power at the emperor's side. Yuan Yun couldn't be any more eager to check and balance their powers. Chen Gong, as a result, received his grace, like that of success following well-placed conditions. Lu Fang affirmed Puliurgian's words, they mean to eliminate him completely. Many have spoken about Yuan Qilang's innate talent and intelligence. His Majesty is afraid of sowing the seeds of disaster for the future, leading to a great disaster that may come to him. While both men were talking, Yuan Song had already stopped in his tracks. He gazed up at the 3 men approaching him, as though he did not know how to react. Bei Yun smiled at him, "Yuan Qilang, I must ask you not to run any further. His Majesty gave us an order, saying it didn't matter if we brought you back dead or alive. So if you behave and come back with us, it'll prevent you from experiencing a lifetime of suffering." Puliurgian watched from afar, sighing inwardly to himself. He could only think, could it be that the final blood tie to the imperial Yuan household is destined to meet his end here? Just as he thought this, he saw a man's silhouette fly through the city. Upon seeing that the gates had been closed, the man leapt upwards, as though he were treading upon clouds. Each step took him higher. The soldiers on the city walls had yet to react before the man had already flown over them, before gracefully returning beneath the walls. His steps light as air, his feet clear of dust. A great bow of light stretching through the sky, aloof and distant like that of a strong wind. This sort of Qinggong method had been applied with absolute perfection. If both Lu Fang and Puliurjian were in complete awe of it, then it would go without saying what the other soldiers thought. To the three opponents who have formerly lost to me before, I must ask that you forgive this poor Daoist for appearing late. Shen Qiao, with Do Yan in his arms, almost seemed to have fallen from the sky before the three men. End of the chapter. Stay tuned for more BL.